With a yo-ho-ho, it's Taylor the Toaster. Welcome back to another Inazuma 11 tier list. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. I did one for pretty much every category of special move from the first 5 games and then stopped at Galaxy because I hadn't finished the Let's Play for that. But also Ares and Orion never got covered either because I was doing individual episode reviews for Ares. But now those Ares episode reviews are long gone, so I have here just a small little tier list of every move that was introduced in Ares. So that specifically means nothing that was in Ares, but it was also in the original trilogy, even if it got kind of reimagined. And also nothing that was introduced in Orion, because that would go in its own tier list. You don't want a combined one that lasts about 2 hours. So we're just going to talk about the Ares ones here. Again, all the Ares episode reviews are done. Orion, I haven't done any, but I don't think I plan to, so I imagine that will come as its own tier list if people want it, and then Galaxy can appear at some point as well. But let's just talk about the Ares ones first. There's all my traditional tiers back in place. One more thank you again to The Damn Beaver. They made all of my previous tier list templates, and you can also do this one for yourself if you look in the description, so be sure to tweet them at me. We're going to start with Celestial Soar, which is a really interesting opener. It's from the Zeus team, so Perseus. So a shooting move for someone that's not Aphrodite on Zeus is a first. And it's quite basic. It's, you could see Arian Sherwind doing it. At the end of the day, it is just a wind move. But it being on Zeus at all really carries extra weight, and there's just a lot of edge and extra appeal to it just from, I don't know, it's just, you see it and it's like, wow, I probably shouldn't like this as much as I do, but I really do, so B tier it is. Almost the same thing from an opposite point of view for Centrifugal Blast. This belongs to Eddie Orion on the, on Haizaki's team, and it's really powerful looking. Like, you could give this move to the final boss and power scaling wise it would look accurate. Like, this could be the last move in the whole season and it wouldn't look out of place. Instead, it just goes to a random guy on Polestar Academy that you're not even meant to pay attention to. But I really like that fact. It shows that team is number 1 ranked for a reason. It's not just Elliot Ember. Even the backup strikers there have like top tier shooting moves. You just don't get to see them very often because they're getting outdone by their own teammate. But you know that even if Haizaki were to leave that team, they would still be top ranked because they've got stuff like Centrifugal Blade in their arsenal. So I like that. Cold Front or White Double Blizzard thingy is going to open up the A tier. It is exactly what we wanted and nothing more. Like, Eternal Blizzard is one of the most well-loved and famous moves in the Inazuma 11 series, so when Ares decided to bring Aiden Frost back from the dead, all we wanted was a 2-player version of Eternal Blizzard from the brothers, and that's exactly what we got. You could imagine how this move is going to look before it's even come out, so I'll barely spare it of the S tier, especially as it's got another variant coming up, but it just delivers the very thing we asked for from the Alpine match. We've got another frosty one. Cold Snap is actually from Ryman rather than Alpine. That's the passing version of Kuri no Yari. So a new thing for Ares, a move that is just a long pass and not a shot. I've realised from playing like the Captain Tsubasa game on Switch that Inazuma 11 really was quite behind the times by not having long pass stuff. It's been in Tsubasa from the beginning, and even now that it does have Cold Snap, which turns into a shoot later anyway, this is pretty much the only one we ever got, but that certainly helps it stand out a lot, and it comes at a nice early point in the story too, so for that alone, I really respect it. Now this one hurts me a lot, because Containment Field, or Zone of Pentagram, comes from my favourite new character in the season, Mizukamiya. I love the guy. He's pretty much my favourite defender in the series, I think it's fair to say. But his one actual defensive move, it's just a little too confusing. It's certainly unique enough. It summons this kind of force field to redirect the ball away. But it happens twice in the anime. Once in Ares where it's successful enough at deflecting, I guess. And then there's one time in Orion where he uses it, and nothing changes. Like, you could have cut out the time that containment field was used and it would have had no impact on the match. I don't know how it would work in Inazuma SD or any other games like Great Road of Heroes, so it could definitely go up, because I certainly really like the character that it belongs to. But unfortunately, on both occasions that it's used in the anime, it pretty much contributes nothing to the match, and so it's not, like, visibly effective enough to go into the top half. Cosmic Blaster, I don't think there's any doubt that that was going to the S tier. So let's just let's find the explosion and put that in at the same time. It's called the Detonator in the dub. So it's where am I looking? There we go. The Detonator. I will put at the front of A. To talk about the Detonator individually. When I first saw it, I thought it was a bit ugly. It's like, whoa, what's this purple, warty, bubbly thing coming out? But I just grew so attached to the voice clip from Hiroto that, yeah, just the explosion couldn't be any lower than A tier. It did lose a lot of that appeal in the dub when it just came out as the Detonator. But Cosmic Blaster also suffers in the name because it's very similar to Cosmic Blast, but that's a dub exclusive thing, doesn't apply to the Japanese one. And it would basically be very hard to mess this move up. Like, the thing that's most interesting about the Detonator is not really the blast itself, because that's just another big explosive Inazuma move. And same with Cosmic Blaster, we've seen more moves like it in the past that have the same kind of just big impact at the end. But it's the whole idea of Hiroto just passing to himself repeatedly based on his solo trading inside his house that really boosts the Detonator a lot. And then Cosmic Blaster, just by introducing his new friend Xavier into that. I'm being a bit inconsistent with my dub naming. This tier list is supposed to use only dub names because it's what I'm more familiar with, but it's also been a while since I watched Ares, so I'm forgetting a couple of character names here and there. But just by turning this lonely Detonator into a friendship-based collab attack that's also cool and not, like, corny, it's just an instant win. Gotta rate Cosmic Blaster on that sense. So I guess we might as well finish the Xavier. When I said Xavier before, obviously I mean the red-haired one. For Grey Xavier's last move, Zigzag Zoom gets to go in the D tier with Containment Field because it's similarly confusing. I watched Ares twice, and on both occasions I thought it was a dribble, and I was like, wow, that's a weird decision to give a dribbly move to the God Striker. Shouldn't he be focused on shooting? And apparently he was. Like, Zigzag Zoom appears one time in Ares and Orion, and it is a shoot. He just uses it to dribble past the Ryman players with all the zigzagging all over the place, and then the kick itself at the end was very muted because he has to jump over the wall from Golem, and then it just kind of goes into the net normally. So it basically looked like a dribble, and it was a shoot that just wasn't obvious, and, you know, that could have been an impactful first use as a way to surprise with it, and then he could have used it as a shot later. But this is a character that has plenty of opportunities to shoot. He takes tons of goals in the first half of Orion, and he's got plenty of screen time in this match as well. But although you see the explosion come out tens of times, and Cosmic Blaster even more than once, Zigzag Zoom is only ever used once, and it's just... If it was a dribble, then that would have been more useful to him, but it clearly just seems to be a worse move than the Detonator, so it's just... I don't know, did the writers not like it, or does Xavier himself not like it? It just... it doesn't seem to serve that much of a purpose. Oh dear. Because we're going in alphabetical order in these images, that means I can go no further without talking about Counter Drive. This is probably the worst special move in the whole Inazuma 11 series, and its only real contender is yet to come within this very tier list, unfortunately. I'm sure you could all tell what that's going to be, but Counter Drive might be the single worst, because, I mean, let's just go over the sins in order. Firstly, there was already a move called counter drive. The goalkeeping move close counter in Go is called counter drive in Japanese. And even before that, we had counter attack. Well, that's just a skill, but we had counter strike, which was another goalkeeping move which worked the same way. The only difference here is this is used in the defence of the pitch. It's unique in a gameplay sense. This is what the rare defenders of Counter-Strike will say. It's not like shot blocks in the traditional Inazuma 11 games where it's just a shot that you happen to be able to use for blocking. This can only be used for blocking, and if you walk up to the goal, then you can't just use it as a shot. But anything that encourages this move coming out, I don't want, because counter drive is just... it makes no sense. I mean, there's plenty of blocking stuff in the series prior that doesn't make sense, like Excalibur, it's a stronger block when it's further away. But counter drive exists solely to take on like ridiculously strong shots like a Cosmic Blaster or a Triple Blizzard or whatever, and it just puts Sunny and Basil, just two of your forwards, they run back to the goal line and they kick the ball that's headed towards them. It's as simple as that. They just see it coming and they're like, we're going to kick this ball. And instead of, your usual defender interaction where it's like, okay, they've managed to slow down the ball a bit and then it will blast past them, but at least they helped and now the goalkeeper can stop it. Counter drive, despite being just a normal two-player kick, has the strength to redirect the strongest moves in the series, turn them 180 degrees around, and then score with it from the goal line. Where do you draw the line? This is a move that can score a goal from across the whole pitch in a situation where you're the one being scored on. Imagine if you could do that in actual football. Be like, FIFA World Cup here, Senegal are giving Qatar a bit of a battering here. They're about to score with their special move, and then the Qatari players are just like, nah, counter drive. And then they score! And it just brings matches to such an anticlimactic end. Like, it made its debut against Alpine, and, that was all coming together. A nice, tense match with plenty going on. And then, Alpine, they're going, whoa, it's their final attack. And but God said no. Counter drive, and now it's crossed the entire pitch and it's in the back of the net. It is ridiculously overpowered, it's boring, it's got the same name and similar names to previous things. It's very situationally useful in the games where it can only be used as a block, and it's outright better than having a goalkeeper. Why even bother having Sandra in the net when this is stronger than every move she's got? I hate it. I also don't really like Daruma Boomer. I have to say Daruma Boomer to make it rhyme when, in reality the word is like Daruma. Daruma Boomer! We were stuck with Basil Hardy using Fire Tornado for an entire season in Ares. Not even Axel Blaze in Season 1 was using Fire Tornado for the whole series. Sure, he never got a new solo move, he was always just joining in with collab shots, which Basil does as well, but we have 25 straight episodes of Basil using Fire Tornado, which isn't even that strong of a move in present day contexts. And then I was just waiting and waiting for him to finally get a new move, and when he does, it's just Fire Tornado again, but with a slightly different theme. That slightly different theme, I do appreciate. The addition of the Chinese mythology in that is a quirky touch. I'd maybe even appreciate the move if he got it halfway through the season, but we just waited for Basil to get a new move, and it was just... we basically went from Fire Tornado to Fireball Screw, so it was a disappointing end. But we'll come back to Basil's moves in the Orion tier list, because he may have a bit of a redemption arc. Desecrator, I think, is pretty unpopular from the limited amount of discussions I've seen about it. Obviously, people don't really talk about the Ares Isatsus that much, but... it's a Polestar Academy move where Mr. Goalkeeper Man punches the ground and then the net and the floor sink. So the ball never actually changes trajectory, it's just the net that moves. And I think the main complaint I've seen with it is that it's cheating. And if this were a real match, an unprecedented circumstance like that would probably be awarded as a goal to whoever took the shot anyway. And it's like, we don't really need to follow the moves, follow the rules on Inazuma. I am amazed it took this long to have a serious move like this, because we had sliding goal since the first season, but that was like a joke. This is a more serious, I'm going to move the goal type thing, and I think it was overdue in a cold snap sense, so it's not the best, but I do like it. Now, you might not actually expect to see this move here, but Diamond Ray does count as an Aries move by virtue of being in Reloaded, the kind of episode 0 to the series. We don't really see it, well, we don't see it at all again until Orion, and it's kind of more associated with that, but by a technicality, Diamond Ray counts as an Aries move because it predates them all. And I love it. I don't see people giving this move enough credit, to be honest. I see a lot of people just don't like it for whatever reason, but it makes me like Clario pretty much single-handedly. It's got one of those most iconic voice clips in Inazuma history, just Diamond Ray. It hits with such an impact, but it's a move that's a theme that's never really been done before, despite you would expect it to be. Diamonds have at best been used for like goalkeeping stuff. It's incredibly powerful, looking for a major opposing team, but one that's also not villainous. It's just a positive but really strong shot. But it's also got weaknesses that can be developed upon in later seasons. You know, it's extremely powerful, but it's also very one-directional. But yeah, it's just like a 10 out of 10 on strength, and then it's got vulnerabilities elsewhere, and it's positive enough for a team like the Spanish, well, various Spanish teams it's a part of, but something for Mark to aspire to block, and it's just got an amazing voice clip to go with it. Like, nothing will ever top Stargazer in that department, but Diamond Ray, I don't know if it's just me, to be honest. Am I the only one who thinks Diamond Ray is, like, perfect? Divine Dummy can also be the highest dribble so far. It does not belong to Zeus, like you might expect. It's another under-the-radar Polestar Academy move, but it's just very pretty. Same kind of thinking as stuff like Athena's Anthem, but now with a character who's pretty much been designed just to use this move. Like Oliver Golightly, he would, if he didn't have Divine Dummy, he'd probably look completely different. But it's not necessarily the most original idea, but when you've got a season like Aries, which is the most HD that Inazuma's ever been, and the most powerful art style for bringing moves to life, you want something like that to happen again, and just to look gorgeous. Dragon Drive, I think, does just enough for a B tier. I know in my episode review I had to knock the dub name a little bit for being too similar to Dragon Driver, but that's again not an issue with the Japanese name. It belongs to a team that is mostly focused on its defender, who would later be the captain, and of course the goalkeeper Mark Evans. So it makes sense that striking wouldn't really be much of a thing for them, but when they do, they still have this kind of singular, really nice looking shot. We've not seen too much like it. The most Chinese a move ever got was JP's Mixie Max goalkeeping thing. So let's do it as a collab shot instead. Dragon Drive, it reminds me of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in a good way. Easter Island Header also gets to be a nice, respectable C tier at least. It's the same kind of concept as something like Groundquake or Megaquake, but it needed to be reimagined in some form for Aries, especially on a pure defensive team that it was applied to. And this just puts a unique, fun spin on it. Now, the ground is an Easter Island head. Didn't see that one coming. But I really didn't see fancy footwork coming. I'm specifically putting that in first, and I think Diamond Ray is going in second as well. Flash Dance, Fancy Footwork, whatever you want to call it, they're both excellent names. I guess Fancy Footwork isn't because Frank Foreman already had a Fancy Footwork in Go Galaxy, as we'd later discover. But based on the dance sequence from Flashdance, with its own comedy sequence as well, you know, this is meant to be Adriano's first special move. Nope, we're going to sub him out. I've seen so many people say, it wasn't that funny. Whatever, I thought it was pretty fun. We get Maxime in a move for the first time in just a way you'd never expect. Like, this was the proper bland captain type. We knew nothing about him or what his special move would look like. So for it to be this polite ballet dancing sequence played for comedic effect, but still with apparently the strength to injure Hunter Foster, It's just so left field. I can watch it on repeat. It's so graceful and comedic yet stylish all in one go. It is honestly a contender for my favourite move that was introduced in Ares and Orion altogether. I can't even put it into words, to be honest. But, I mean, maybe I was so happy about the flat cap guy, Kiko, replacing Adriano, just because he was my favourite Ares character from episode 1 based on design alone. And then when he got his own move, it was so bad that I really wanted him to be a part of something better. And eventually he was. So I guess that's a good segue. We will talk about Kiko's own defensive move, and Twister Trap is going straight to the E tier. It could be F levels of bad, but we're saving that purely for the likes of worst in the series, i.e. Counter Drive, and something else on the way. Twister Trap, though, is just such a shame, because it comes at a time where all of the characters are doing their training and then they're getting moves based upon it. You know, like Golem's been washing the windows, so then he does the wall with the same kind of movement. And then a little bit better for Valentine, he's been spraying the windows to clean them, so he gets Cold Snap with the same kind of motion. And then Kiko, his kind of task is to clean the floors of the school, and when he does enough cleaning, what he does for his special move is summon a big hurricane that takes the ball. And, like, Cyclone was the very first defensive move to appear in the whole series. Like, Season 1, Episode 1 or 2, I can't remember which, but Royal Academy have just a big hurricane defensive move to take the ball from the other team. Like, Twister Trap adds nothing apart from that tiny little cleaning animation quirk at the start of it. Kiko, I had such high hopes for him. I loved his flat cap. I loved the design in general. I couldn't wait to see what his move was going to be. And when it was the most uninspired, generic thing in the series so far, the disappointment was unimaginable. Just, I had no idea it was going to get worse with some of the shots. Oh, speaking of which, yep, alphabetical order, we've got Fireball Storm as well. I'll still put it ahead of Counter Drive, but this is the one case where a move technically existed in a previous season, but I'm still including it in the tier list here because you cannot argue that Fireball Storm from Ares is the same move as Fireball Storm from the OG. And you also can't argue that it's better. Oh my god, what a way to just poo all over the longevity of this thing. Fireball Storm in Season 2... It meant so much. Like, Axel Blaze went away for a whole season, then he came away with, like, flaming Mars in the hand thing. It was so much more powerful than Fire Tornado. It put that whole thing in the dust. Whereas Fireball Storm in Ares is just Fire Tornado plus any other move. And we're going to call it Fireball Storm. Like, it first combines with Triangle Z, which is a move that I already hadn't really... I love Triangle Z, and I wanted to see maybe a complete combination of Fire Tornado and Triangle Z. I would have loved Fireball Z or Fire Tornado Z. That could have been quite fun, but for it to turn out as Fireball Storm and look so much weaker than the original incarnation of it, sure, it makes sense that the moves will be different because this is a completely different timeline. The original Fireball Storm was based on Axel Blaze leaving the team for like a year and then training on his own and coming up with that, whereas here he's actually been able to continue playing football, so this is what Fireball Storm turns out to be like in this. But that's not even the only thing. Like, Ryman does it as well with just Basil's Fire Tornado plus something else. I don't like that it's a mathematical formula, just Fire Tornado plus something else equals Fireball Storm. And yes, that's the whole point of the overrides in Ares. That was supposed to be its gameplay gimmick, and yeah, maybe Kirby 64 style fusion of just one move plus another equals this could be quite nice, but I'd like them to all be unique moves in their own right, or at least if they are going to be old moves, don't make them worse. Like, Fireball Storm has already been reimagined once. It went from Axel's normal shooting move to Cronus's fighting spirit shot and go, like that was an improvement. Whereas this just actively makes it so much worse. It ruins Fireball Storm, it ruins Triangle Z, it's just, it serves no positive purpose at all. We've had 2 bad ones in a row, so I'm going to go back for a good one, and this is perhaps the busiest that the S tier has ever been in one of my tier lists so far. It's usually very exclusive to get in here, but it's currently the most filled field. The alphabetical order coming in strong here, but Fire Lemonade is what the whole season was building up to. And let me tell you something. I really like lemonade. Not 7-Up or Sprite style British lemonade, but the proper yellow, flat, actually sour, actually tastes of lemon stuff. Oh, gimme that stuff. And with the running joke throughout Aries, you could never really tell if Fire Lemonade was actually going to become a real move or not. I was always leaning towards, yes, it probably will, and then the more it got built up, the more likely it became. But you still couldn't actually imagine it. You know, the whole joke is Fire Lemonado instead of Fire Tornado. It's based on a misunderstanding. So it could have just been in the same way as Back Tornado and all these Fireball Storms. Just a lemony reskin of Fire Tornado. Even that's hard to imagine. How do you make a move look lemony? But no, Fire Lemonade is its own thing, and it shares pretty much no similarities with any Inazuma 11 move in the whole series. Like, it just starts off with your big grand vision of, oh my god, Adriano's actually doing a shot, and then it propels forward in just whatever direction it feels like. But the added touch of the splash to make it explode in the goalkeeper's hands, it was totally unpredictable from start to finish, and it actually somehow looks both fiery and lemony in a way that I never could have visualised in my head. It's the opposite in that sense of Cold Front. You knew exactly what that was going to look like. It was Fire Lemonade, even though they gave you 26 weeks to guess, we still couldn't have imagined it looking like this. And my boy Adriano, you deserve this. I've just put Flash Dash in the C tier, but that took a lot of thinking about because visually it looks really, really cool. I think we'll get into the topic as this goes along that Sonny probably has the most interesting looking special moves out of all the Inazuma protagonists. He definitely beats out Arian, with some exceptions for like Heartbeat maybe, but Flash Dance... Flash Dance is fancy footwork, Flash Dash is Flash Dash, or Inakabari Dash, however you say it. But basically, I think visually it looks really cool, and if it's stuck to one purpose, I'd probably put it straight in the B tier. It's in C because it's officially classed as a midfielding move, but in the anime it can be used for both midfielding and blocking, and it's used for blocking much more. Like, if you're basing the category on the anime, it should be a defensive move, but like, the fact that it's officially a midfielding move, but it's more often a defensive move, but still can be midfielding, it's just kind of quite hard to put in a box. And, like, it's called Flash Dash, but again, it's more of a block. And some people might see it as a good thing that it can do both. Even I really should, but maybe if there were more examples of moves that could do both, then I'd be kinder to it. But because it stands out as a one-off exception that falls into 2 different categories, I think I'll land straight in the middle. Flying Colours, the other representation for Captain Maxime, is just about good enough for a B tier. Like, I like the name, Pass with Flying Colours, and I just like how visually brilliant it is. But other than that, it is a 3-player hit the ball thing, and it's a little hard to believe that this is what injures Maxime upon firing. Like, it looks pretty useful because it's 3 people doing your own little colourful beams, but it doesn't look like harmful to the users. It's colourful and fluffy and nice. Why did this put Maxime in hospital and force him off the team? It's just a little bit suspension of belief there. Frankenstun, I'm putting it specifically lower than Easter Island Head, but still within the C tier as well. The fact that Rampart gets more than one just individual blocking move before we go into all the wall for one business is something I appreciate. They only needed to give them Easter Island Head, but we have 2 unique blocking moves off of this squad, and that's just good. It's weird that in Japanese it is simply called Frankenstein, and that's it. There isn't too much to it, but it's also not like trying to closely follow the rocky, rugged theme of Rampart Junior High. It's just totally unique. Right, we've been recording for a while, so let's up the pace just a tiny bit. Polar Pike is Cold Snap, but can also be a shot, so cool. Fur Trapper can go in decent because it is objectively unique for Inazuma standards, and it does suit the goalkeeper. You just don't have to like it, like it's clearly not that appealing. Alphabetically, we get God Alone Knows next, or God Knows Impact by its more known Japanese name. It is A tier because it's beautiful. Like, there is not a bad God Knows shot in the series. They all look fantastic, and this one is particularly inspiring. I just don't get why it is God Alone Knows or God Knows Impact. Like, sure, when we're in this alternate timeline, you lose stuff like the original Fireball Storm and characters go on different arcs, but why does Aphrodite, instead of learning God Break, just learn God Knows 2? Like, they're as strong as each other, probably. They look a little visually different, but still have the same chord, as one has nighttime and lightning and the other retains daytime. That's the difference, really. It's like, yeah, it's not like confirmedly stronger than God Break. It could have even looked exactly the same and just been called God Break. I don't get why it has to be a different move, but if you take that aside, it's stunning. Golden Gull is also one of my favourite moves to come out of an actual main protagonist. It's, you know, what was Asato's theme going to be? We know that his dub name is like Sunny, so maybe he'll have something to do with the sun, but wow, he went all in. It's not just sun, we've got seagulls and birds and island backgrounds and everything. Golden Gull is perhaps more stylish and creative than a lot of the moves that don't belong to the protagonist, whereas usually with someone like Arian, they're very toned down and, you know, not overly flashy as to not over-prioritise the person doing it. Golden Gull just says, no, this is my moment, I'm taking a shot, and it's going to look good. Grabber Arm, or Casting Arm, I'm going to put it at the top of C. I actually probably like it even more than that, because an Extendo Arm thing was something that Inazuma really needed, and it does have a variant in Orion which will finish even higher. I think this one suffers a bit because apparently it's not a fire element move, even though it blatantly looks like one, or at the very least there was some in-depth reason from Zikri or AK in the comments of my final two Ares reviews as to what the objective problem with this move is. I think, to be fair, it's probably a bit of the power scaling. Like, it's a lot weaker than Lunar Eclipse, which we might as well also slot in if I can find it. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. That can be lower. Is it D? It's a bit better than those. Yeah, we'll go here. Yeah, Grabber Arm is able to stop something that Lunar Eclipse could not, even though it is significantly weaker of a move. But I shouldn't base the moves ranking purely on the way the writing of the animated. I am actually going to bump it up to the bottom of the B tier because it's something that was needed in the series for a while, and it's not necessarily the first one to borrow on that idea, but I just like it. Whereas I'm not that bothered about Gravity Cage because it kind of because it's a 3-person special move, it basically means that everyone involved can't have their own special move for ages. Most notably Seiso with the glasses, you know, he's kind of the main one in this, but as a result he won't actually get his own midfielding move until the very final match. It feels like super overpowered for how early on you get it, and you have to kind of wonder why they don't use it more often. Yeah, it's kind of confusingly good for how early it comes on, and then it also means the players can't have much of a spectacle in their own right. So, but the move itself is fine, so D tier. E tier is filling up. Let's have these two somewhat generic fire moves back to back. Daruma Boomer was for Basil Hardy, but Hothead, unfortunately, was for Adriano. We've spent a whole season building up to him getting Fire Lemonade in the final episode, and he even tries to get involved with fancy footwork but gets kicked out of it. This is the narrative I wanted. I wanted him to have nothing until the very end, where he amazes us all with a fire lemonade like we could never imagine. But at one point, they do technically just give him a special move in the form of Hothead, which doesn't even feel like a special move. He just deflects a move that I think was on fire already. So something backdraft. He just turns it around by leaping into the air, cartwheeling, looking... well, he can't keep himself together. He basically just crashes into the move, headbutts it, redirects it, but then he gives it a name, and it's like official. It is considered a special move. And now even Adriano has to have a fire move when we already have Basil. It appears only once, and to be honest, that's a good thing. I wouldn't ever want to see it again. It's just disappointing. I wish I was able to forget that this was a thing, but then I did the Ares reviews, and I was unfortunately reminded of it. But back to the S tier then, because we have one of the greatest best goalkeeping moves of all time, before it's even finished becoming the best one. Like, Mega Margin, we'll go with Fujin Rajin, is already S tier, and no major spoilers for the Orion tier list to say it gets even better than this, but this fixes Mega Margin, well, all the problems I had with Margin the Hand, while also making it better and cooler. I always thought Margin the Hand just looked a bit like, ugly for a guy like Mark Evans. He's got this heaving, huge behemoth behind him, and it's like, that's not really how I imagine this Mark dude with his big old genie. I mean, clearly that is meant to be his theme. He has plenty of moves with a big old thing in the background, but I think the stylization of Mega Margin is so much nicer. Just, keep it a bit more gentle and cartoony for our main protagonist guy. But then we've also got two of them, and rather than being a really strong move in the centre, it's actively got a weakness in the centre, and instead it can cover both sides with different dudes. And then sure enough, that centre is going to be covered later on. And it just comes out with all the music hitting us again. It's one of the most popular moves in Ares, and for good reason. Fujin Rajin, when all you can complain about is the dub name, like, that makes it pretty flawless to me. But I think Mermaid's Veil from Sandra is really quite up there as well. I should be doing Splash Guard first, so let's do that. I think it's bottom of C tier, it could be D tier. It's more obvious that it's a God Hand type move from its Japanese name, but then in dub it gets to be Splash Guard. But at the end of the day, it is watery God Hand, but with some nice extra bits of animation flair. I definitely like it enough for the C tier, but obviously we see it fail quite a lot in this show as well, so I can't go too high. Whereas Mermaid's Veil, that is both beautiful and stylish, but also effective. I think it saves the ball more often than it's beaten out, so that makes a lot of the Sandra complaints that I've heard a little bit invalid. She's meant to be quite below average with just Splash Guard until she gets Mermaid Veil, which is then a lot better, but still not invulnerable. It's not as good as Counter Drive, I'm afraid, but it's very loopable. You could just have that as like an animated wallpaper, and that'd be pretty sick. Still got time for some bad ones. I'll put Meteor Strike at the top of it at least, but it's not even the most important move in Ares to have the word Meteor in it. Meteor Blade's been there since Season 2, and it's going to be in Ares later in the season. Meteor Strike looks so difficult to pull off. No, the page is not unresponsive. I've just been interacting with it. There was no real build-up to the learning of it in the anime. They just pull it out, but it's a 3-person proper circus acrobatic thing, all to result in a massively powerful shot that rips off Meteor Blade, and they only use it once. Again, something this strong, you'd expect it to be a staple of the team, but it is just a one-off that happens to be, amazing. But also, the one time it is used, it just has this weird thing of, it's going to miss the goal, it's flying right over the top, then all of a sudden, it can just lose all of its momentum and drop like a stone in the middle of the air to go underneath the goalkeeper. Again, I can suspend my disbelief with Inazuma. Moves are meant to be weird and make no sense, but for it to just change trajectory on its own, that's where we start to have a bit of a problem. Come on, they're meant to be more powerful versions of regular shots, not just actively... alright, there's plenty of moves that actively change the trajectory of the ball in the middle of it that I still like, but this just... Why would Meteor Strike do that? It's a big shot from above. That's its thing. It's not meant to be magic. Speaking of magic, kind of, Ninja Toad, this could easily go in B or C. I think the momentum of the shot is really fun to follow, and it's again got a theme that's not been done too much in the past. It surprised me though when it came out. I expected the guy who was using it to be more of a midfielder than a shooting midfielder, and sure enough he only does it once, which makes it a bit hard to get attached to. A name like Ninja Toad doesn't leave much of an impact either. I think it's good enough for at least the B tier. I'm just not that personally attached to it. Another one I'm not greatly attached to is Sparky Spin, Spark Wind. I think this would probably go to maybe the D tier at best if it wasn't Trevor's only move ever. Like, I get that he's a libero, he's a defender that runs up the field, so at some point he deserves to have a midfielding move to help him with that job, and that's what Sparky Spin is. It's not particularly exciting to look at, it's just Twister Trap but on the move with a few sparks coming off of it. Like, his electricity theme isn't all that apparent outside of this move, where even within that it's quite quiet and muted. But when he never gets a defensive move ever, it basically says to me, well, he's not a libero, he's just a midfielder then. Like, the guy never really does much in the way of actual defending. He's got some occasional sliding tackles, which is nice, but this is not the most interesting move. It's more just serves an interesting purpose on a defender. But when it's uncomplimented by him not having any defensive moves, that's when it kind of falls flat. I guess that brings us on to the penguin moves of Elliot Ember as well. We'll put Penguin Volley in C tier and Perfect Penguin in the D tier. That might be a bit harsh for Perfect Penguin. You know what, we'll put Perfect Penguin at the back end of the C tier and then Penguin Volley a bit more like here. So like Penguin Volley I do like more, mainly based on the fact that Jude steals it, but also single player penguin moves haven't really been done in Inazuma up to this point. Only Emperor Penguin #1, which clearly should never be done as a single player thing. Yeah, I think the main thing I like about it is Jude stealing the move in Orion. But it's a nice new way to get a penguin move in there, and if it was part of Royal Academy's team, I'd probably like it a lot. It's just the fact that Elliot Ember, a guy who's named after fire, whether you call him Hyzaki or Elliot Ember, you expect a big fire move, and yeah, sure, I don't need it, because we've already got Basil and even technically Adriano with fire moves, but why is he having penguin moves? He's not met Jude Sharp at this point. And penguins, yeah, it's more a signature of Inazuma 11 than a signature of Royal Academy in the eyes of the writers, perhaps. But for me, penguins have always been attached to Royal Academy and Jude. And this guy, he's part of, like, the successor to Royal Academy writing-wise. But Royal Academy is still in the plot. Polestar Academy isn't connected to it, apart from Jude joining it later. So where did the penguins come from? For him, Emperor Penguin #2 already exists. Did he just watch a match and decide, I like penguins, I'm going to do that now? So Penguin Volley goes higher because at least it was a fun novelty to have once. But when we got Perfect Penguin, that was his new second stronger move. I'm like, yeah, I'm already done with the penguins on this guy. I want him to have something else. And by Orion, he will. Like, Elliot turns it around, but Perfect Penguin, it's mainly just... It would be good if it was on Royal, and I like the Perfect Penguin voice. That can give us a Royal Academy move, actually. Let's put Savage Beast Fang at the front of B tier. I'm going to put it there because visually, I like it a lot more than Beast Fang from the original series, instead of having big recoil and just being extremely strong at the user's injury benefit. Now this is a move that you can do without hurting yourself, but it's still not a comfortable one for Joe King to use. The man is actively possessed when Savage Beast Fang comes out. Genuinely, when this move starts, I don't think Joe is actually in control of the move or knows what he's doing. I think Savage Beast Fang is a separate goalkeeping entity that comes out for this move, and it's brilliant to watch. It only misses out on the A tier because naming wise, whether it's High Beast Fang in Japanese or Savage Beast Fang in the dub, it's just not really apparent at first that it is meant to be a separate move. to Beast Fang, especially when Beast Fang doesn't exist in this timeline anyway. You either stick to one timeline and you get Beast Fang, or in this one you get Savage Beast Fang, but like, why? It could just be Beast Fang, but on this occasion it's not like a harmful move anymore. I guess it's different to signify it's not going to hurt him too much, unless it does. Maybe if he used it too much, but yeah, visually it's a treat. Rabbit Run, this is hard. It could go top of C or low B. I'm going to go for B, because although the idea of a rabbit-themed kick is not, like, truly stand out by itself, it's the fact that it incorporates Bunny's athletics things right into the start. It means no one else could do this move other than her, and sometimes that's a bad thing and sometimes it's really good. And in this case, yeah, the rabbit is just her personality to bring out what is actually just an athletics-based running move. It's basically two moves in one, and I think she learns it a little too fast. It's just a consequence of her only being in the second half of the match. It's surprising when it does come out for the first time, and that it's strong enough to beat out Sandra's goalkeeping move. I think it still should have been blocked. It would be impressive enough that she was able to do it at all, but outside of that, it's just quite nice. Royal Lancer from Heathmoor is fine. It looks nice and strong enough for a final boss. It gives me some flashbacks to LBX or Dan Bolsenki, which is another series that I do like, but I think there's a reason where when Heath is such a major character in Orion, he never uses it once. I completely forgot this move when I went into my Ares rewatch. Like, even on the second time it was used in the match, I think I'd forgotten it again. Heath is apparently a forward in Ares, and we just see him as a midfielder, so him going on the strike doesn't seem that right, especially when later in Orion he gets a new shooting move which is a lot more toned down. Like that Crescent Moon theme seems actively weaker than Royal Lancer, but it's what he chooses to do as a more midfieldy person. So this one almost feels like it's been retconned. That's a weird aspect of it. This is an unpopular opinion of mine, but I am not too big on Aiden Frost's shots. It's been well argued, like, yeah, you'd expect him to probably have a bit of an ice theme in there, but actually, yeah, he doesn't need to. Sean covers that base well, and even in the original canon, Aiden's thing was always the bear hunter, the wolves, and that. Legendary Wolf was originally his move before it was passed on to Sean, and then in Ares when he's alive, he instead does the stuff with the bear. But it doesn't feel like a continuous move. The way he's got to announce it's a special move before he then says the name of the move afterwards, and then special move is part of the move name. And the fact that they're both connected, he always said, special move, Ursa, something. It takes forever to get out, and it's just really labours it. It's like, bro, I just want you to kick the ball and score a goal. I didn't ask for a lecture. There's a lot of Inazuma moves with heavy build-up before them, but this is one that does it every single time. And there's also a complete imbalance of, he's got both a defensive move that you'd never expect and a shooting move that you would. But just like with Zigzag Zoom on Xavier, he uses the shooting one all the time, and he uses the blocking one once. So it gets to the point of, why did you even make parallel moves in the first place if you were only going to keep one around? And other than that, it is just a bear plus a big kick. So it's not for me, but I do respect that they are generally quite popular among most fans. Short Circuit, you know what? It's full on A tier. I wish we got to see it more than once, or just a little bit earlier in the season. I guess someone's got to have a moment in the final boss other than Adriano, but Cesar's been a midfielder the whole time, and when he gets his move, it's great. Short Circuit, it reminds me of my robot stuff that I do as well, but above all that, it's just a big geeky maze for the glasses, nerdy, smart, Willy successor guy to do. And it deserved to be in there a lot more. It's good. We never got to show if it had any vulnerabilities. But it's just a pretty one. And then the Gauntlet, I believe it's called in Japanese, that's completely different, but it puts a whole new spin on I think Short Circuit's a lot more fitting, but there's different ways to interpret this move, and that's always a good thing. There's no real interpretation to Triple Blizzard. I'm actually going to have it a tier below Cold Front. Like, Cold Front is the move that we all asked for, the 2-player Eternal Blizzard, while this is the same again, but with less Eternal Blizzard and more randomly this athletic rabbit girl Bunny gets involved and actually kind of takes the lead with it. It's more her move than it is Sean and Aiden's, really. And it doesn't add too much more visual flair, just the big sphere of ice gets a little bit bigger before they kick it, so it doesn't advance too much more beyond throwing in a third player, but it is still, not only is Cold Front exactly the move that we wanted, but it's even got a move beyond that for the override, and that's a good thing. The last one we'll be properly positive about, Wall for One, is, it would have been good to see Golem try this one later. Cliff, there's his dub name, I've finally remembered it. Wall for One was used by Rampart right away, towards the end of their match, but the fact that Cliff goes through all of Ares and Orion using only the wall, not the mountain, not Easter Island Head, not anything new and original, just the wall, when we've already seen in the second match of the season that a better version of the wall exists. Yes, you need a fully defensive team to make it happen, but Wall for One, it introduces the idea of overrides really well. They may have let it down a little bit later with stuff like Fireball Storm and other moves that you don't realise are an override, like the last thing that we've got to put in the tier list. But Wall for One, it's just what if the wall could move and required the whole team to do it, and it just provided a challenge for Ryman to work out, and eventually Polar Pike, not that one, Cold Snap was the answer. Just no complaints. It's not that exciting, but it's a great little concept for a puzzle on how to beat them. Polar Bear number 2 will close out this video, and if you don't want to hear me talk about it, just leave the video now. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and give it a like, and then leave, because I don't want to talk about Polar Bear number 2 either. I've put it higher than Counter Drive because at least it's got a bit more visual flair than two lads kick the ball and send it into the goal, but the purpose is exactly the same. Heck, it's the same two characters. It's Sonny and Basil coming back to the goal line once again, just this time the goalkeeper Sandra will join in with it. It's basically Counter Drive, but the goalkeeper turned up to make it better, except Counter Drive is just as strong anyway. Polar Bear number 2 is another one of those, we've got to end the match now, let's just click my fingers and it's done. Polar Bear number 2 can be used when Ryman are about to lose, the ball is about to go in their net, and instead they're like, nah, my forwards have teleported all the way to the goal line, we're going to do this frosty thing, we're going to kick it from our goal and it's going to cross the entire football pitch and beat out the goalkeeper strength-wise. Do you know how long a football pitch is? But if you can kick with that kind of power, just do it from anywhere. Match starts, Sonny kicks to Basil. Okay, let's run back to the goal line now. Pass it to Sand. To be fair, they actually did do that once. Yeah, there is one match, I think, against Polestar Academy where they open with Polar Bear number 2 and it's thankfully blocked. This move appears at least 3 times in the anime and bro, just get rid of it. It just doesn't make sense that a move, one of the strongest moves you have, can only be used from a deficit in your own goal. And it's Polar Bear number 2. What happened to Polar Bear number 1? I get that it's like a equivalent to Emperor Penguin number 2, but there still is an Emperor Penguin number 1. It's speculated that Polar Bear number 2 is an override to a, in theory, exists Polar Bear number 1 move that could have been in the games, but man, I don't want to see it if it's real, because I already dislike Polar Bear number 2 enough. And even the episode that it appears in, it's like a spoiler in the episode title. You go into the match against Royal Academy and the episode's called Emperor Penguin versus Polar Bear, and they don't do Polar Bear number 2 until the end of the match. It's like the Argentina episode title spoilers. It makes no sense. It's way too strong. It doesn't have any logic behind trying a move like that. Why would you run all your forwards back to train and do a move with a goalkeeper? it spoils an episode if I didn't say that enough. And it's just, it's not even fully original. It's just Emperor Penguin number 2, but we'll swap out the polar animal for something else. I don't like it at all. And it makes Counter Drive even weirder. Like, Counter Drive would at least be a new concept for the Ryman team if Polar Bear number 2 doesn't exist. But Counter Drive is just that, but with less style and people involved. Oh, God, it's despicable. And it outright beats Savage Beast Fang from the other end of the pitch. Like, Joe King, he stepped on after, Royal Academy are meant to be struggling because they had that other useless dude wasting space in goal. When Joe King steps on, he's meant to be the big threat who's like unbeatable. But instead, he's beaten from the absolute opposite end of the pitch by just complete BS, and Savage Beast Fang has to be outright overpowered. At least with Counter Drive on Alpine, the goalkeeper's like, whoa, didn't see that coming, and then he lets it in. But Polar Beam number 2, Polar Beam, it actively overpowers a fan favourite move that's like one of the strongest goalkeeping moves in history. And, oh! The F tier of the Ares moves tier list might be the worst tier in any of these videos I've done. I think Polar Bear number 2 and Counter Drive are candidates for the absolute worst moves in Inazuma history, while Fireball Storm is just there to destroy the legacy of something that was formerly good. So, on the plus side though, I think Ares is really quite balanced. It's got 5 in the S tier, 5 in the E tier, only 3 that proper suck, but then still a lot in the A and B tier that are good. And then Orion is able to expand on these moves and make a lot of them even better. So I really appreciate Ares for bringing us a lot of new special moves, and we'll talk in more detail about what Orion does with them as well. So for now, do the tier list made by the Dan Beaver at the link below. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tweet out your tier lists at me. Give it a go, and we'll be back some other time for more Hisatsu techniques. Wonder how long this video was.